So what's up, people? I'm back, man. Damn. This stuff I found about this company and these two companies in Japan, man. Ale and the Obayashi Corporation. You got one creating fake stars and all kinds of holograms in the sky and the sun. And you got the other one talking about space elevators and shit. I mean, damn, man. You gotta be You gotta be a fool, man, to believe you living on a spinning ball. I mean, you just gotta be damn stupid, ignorant. I don't give a shit how many fucking degrees and PhDs you have and what fucking school you went to. If you believe you on a spinning ball, you are a dumb ass fucking person. Your mother should have aborted your ass when she found out she was at least 3 months pregnant with your ass. Because there can't be that many fucking people on the planet that believe that shit. There's got to be a billion people or more who believe we live on a spinning ball. They see that shit on TV. They see it in the photos. NASA pushing that shit. Every space agency is pushing that shit. And then you probably got another billion who just don't give a fucking rat's ass. Then you got another a billion who don't fucking have a clue where the fuck they are. And then you got another billion who don't even believe where the fuck they are. They can't tell you if it's flat or a globe. They can't tell you if they fucking living in a cave or underwater or if they fucking dreaming. And the remaining flat earth, this shit opened up Pandora's box. If you doing some serious damn research and you just not focusing on one fucking particular damn subject matter with the flat earth, and you really going in every damn rabbit hole you can find, you are uncovering some really crazy ass shit, man, that is getting you to take hold of your psychology, your awareness of what you are, where you are, and who you are. Because you ain't who you think you are. You ain't where you think you are. You don't know what you think you know. This whole world, everything is not real. You look up into the skies, based on what I showed you on Ale, you look up into the sky now, that's all bullshit. You look at a few videos online with regard to that latest one I saw from Jeranism, showing that holographic glitch in the space shuttle launch. God damn. I mean, really? You got astrophysicists and theoretical physicists, supposedly well-known, Neil deGrasse Tyson, Michio Kaku. You got Dr. James Gates and a few other European astrophysicists and physicists going on TV talking about this supernova and this nebula and this super Earth and this and Mars and all that kind of shit. And then in 2016, they decided to have an open public stage debate talking about, is our universe a simulation? Now, if you make your money, if you making your money and you writing papers and you trying to maintain your reputation in the industry of physics, and people look up to you and respect you, I don't have respect for none of these motherfuckers, man. Because for them to go on TV and say how we get to Mars and the moon and all this other bullshit, and then you're gonna do a debate about and ask the question, is our universe a simulation? Wait a fucking minute. Don't you simulate every fucking thing in your research? So if you simulate shit in your research, what you're trying to tell us is the fucking math ain't adding up. How many light years you say shit is away from us, you're finding out the shit ain't there. Billions of dollars, trillions of dollars is being spent to put shit up in the sky, and it ain't doing what you thought it was gonna do, based on the mathematics you fucking put together. And you're gonna ask the universe a simulation. You fucking right it is. And I'm gonna fucking show you how art is imitating life.
is a sparring program, similar to the programmed reality of the Matrix. It has the same basic rules like gravity. What you must learn is that these rules are no different than the rules of a computer system. Some of them can be bent, others can be broken. Understand?
Now, the reason why I like showing that Matrix scene is because, as you can see, how somehow artificial intelligence takes over. This dude's plugged in, Neo, and he's inside a simulation, a computer program. He learned fucking Kung Fu in fucking 10 seconds. I bet you all wish you could fucking learn that shit. Imagine that, learning Kung Fu. Or learning how to motherfucking do proper mathematics in 10 fucking seconds. Don't you wish that, you know, the rest of the world could be woken up like that? 6.5 fucking billion people just plug in, send a signal to their asses through Wi-Fi and shit, and they all wake the fuck up and realize they're on a flat earth? There ain't no fucking such thing as reality. Real? What the hell is real? Ain't nothing real. You see them fighting in the scene and he, boom, flicking his nose and shit like he a badass. Everybody could be a badass in their dreams. You can just go to sleep. Smoke some weed or some shit like that. Drink a bottle of Russian vodka. A few vodka cranberries. You have some really fucked up dreams. You either getting your fucking ass kicked or you doing the ass kicking. But when you wake up, shit, you in whatever you think is your real world. You couldn't fight your way out of a damn paper bag. But I mean, really, people, that just comes to show. I don't know if that's the symbolism behind that scene in the Matrix is about whatever you set your mind to, you can do. That's bullshit. Because I know a lot of people who set their mind to doing something and being all fantastic, and they fall flat on their asses. Certain types of skills and talents, man, have to be learned. And some people are just born with them. Some people are just gifted with them. But man, what the whole gist of this video is about, this posting, is that theoretical physicists and astrophysicists are talking about discussing, is the universe a simulation? You got to simulate everything in science. You got to be able to duplicate an experiment or duplicate something that you see. One thing we can't duplicate is fucking gravity. Still a theory. It's still a theory to this very damn day. Gravity. You can't duplicate it. You can't explain it. Just think that you hold something up and just let go of it and it falls down. That's what they termed it to be. That's what they define gravity to be. But they still can't explain the shit to you in ones and zeros. Or in a mathematical equation saying 9.8 meters a second. That's what gravity is. There ain't shit happening at 9.8 meters a second. Oh man. Is the universe a simulation? Let's see what they have to say.
Start with here. Yes, let me start with you, Zari. Can you tell me why this topic interests you? Let's give a couple of minutes to give us an introduction here.
Sure. So, As Neil said, I'm a theoretical physicist. My interest is in nuclear physics. In fact, I got my PhD in 2014 from Institute of Nuclear Theory in University of Washington. And the research I was focused on there and at the moment is trying to use the knowledge of the laws of nature, and in particular strong interactions, to start from a bottom-up approach and try to see what comes out in a physical system. And that's actually relevant to why I got interested in the simulation idea. And in fact, by just watching the progress that researchers in this field of simulating strong interactions have made in the several past few years, we started to wonder how could we not think about the universe itself based on the laws that we discovered, not simulated. So that the way that we actually simulate the universe, it might actually give us hints that the universe itself could be a numerical simulations. And then you would start thinking, well, let's make assumption that if that scenario is the case, and if that simulation is actually has similarities with what we do in our research, and just drawing parallels between our algorithms and techniques that we use to simulate laws of nature, and making assumption that they are similar, then what can we actually conclude about the universe as a simulation? Can we actually make predictions for the signatures that we should go after and test? So we came up with my collaborators, Martin Savage and Silas Bean at the University of Washington, and that's basically why I'm here. I'm trying to...
So the prospect of this being true didn't freak you out at all?
No, I think it's a fun idea.
Okay, just it's fun
yes.
for you. Okay, fine.
So I'm pretty sure you guys all heard what she said. That as a nuclear theorist, she's got to conduct mathematical simulations. She's got to create experiments that are based on the laws that exist in physics. The laws of physics, which are created by man and woman. They've all agreed in the sciences. This law applies to this situation. This law applies to that. You got the law of motion, the law of gravity, the law of acceleration, the law of velocity. You know, you got to have some sort of set standard and model to be able to explain what it is you see, how it is you do what you do, how you can do what you can do, why it is you see what you see. I think I already said that shit. So she's saying, if we can simulate all of what we see out in the universe mathematically to make sense of it, and we want to go looking for something else, then we use that same mathematics, that simulated mathematics, that artificialness, to go find something else, to see if the same thing exists somewhere else. So her conclusion is, then the universe must be a simulation. Because if I can create it on paper, on a fucking computer, then the same thing must exist in what we call reality. So it can't be real, because I can manipulate the shit. That's what she's saying. If anybody thinks that she's saying something else, and you just happen to have a degree in physics, go for it. I want to hear it. Let's see what this other guy's got to say.
What's going on with you?
Yeah, well, already as a kid, I was always very fascinated by these very big questions about what was really going on with this reality. I remember actually lying in this hammock I had put up between two apple trees back in Stockholm, Sweden when I was 13, reading Isaac Asimov, actually. I'm very honored to get to be here. You know, it really makes you think about these big questions. And the more I learned about it later on as a physicist, the more struck I was that when you get deep down under the hood about how nature works, down to looking at all of you as just as a bunch of quarks and electrons.
And you too, it's not just us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Looking at you as a quark, no, you would come under this category as well.
I am a quark blob too. I confess. So, but if you look at how these quarks move around, you know, the rules are entirely mathematical as far as we can say, Helen, and that makes me wonder if I were a character in a computer game who started asking the same kind of big questions about my game world, I would also discover eventually that the rules seemed completely rigid and mathematical. I would just be discovering the computer program in which it was written. So that kind of begs the question, how can I be sure that this mathematical reality isn't actually some kind of game or simulation?
So you analogize yourself to Super Mario this is who you are.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
So Jim, I just remember you started all this a few years ago, in my mind at least, just triggering the idea that in your research, you found things that forced you to consider the likelihood that somebody programmed us. Could you? Well,
now this is the funny part, because Neil likes to make fucking fun of everybody like he's the smartest motherfucker in the room, but he's actually the dumbest motherfucker in the room when it comes to this kind of shit, because this is where he pissed off fucking Dr. James Gates. And he's been plagiarizing Gates' fucking information. You can see the way Neil is actually looking at Dr. James Gates, who actually wrote his dissertation on string theory, talking about how there's code, computer code, in string theory, and they're ones and zeros. And he believes we're living inside a matrix. So watch how James Gates actually corrects his ass.
First of all, I would disagree with you. I'm not sure that somebody programmed us, but that's what you and I had a conversation where I pointed out that in my research, I had found this very strange thing. Physicists, I like to say we all belong to a company called Equations R Us, because that's how we make our living, is by solving equations. And so I was just going through solving equations, and I was then driven to things that Max knows about, these things called error correcting codes. Error correcting codes are what make browsers work. So why were they in the equations that I was studying about quarks and leptons and supersymmetry? And that's what brought me to this very stark realization that I could no longer say that people like Max were crazy. Or stated another way, if you study physics long enough, you too can become crazy.
that's another, it's a corollary to that idea.
You know, listening to these guys got me thinking. They talking about that physicists have this little company called Equations R Us, where all they do all their lives is solve equations. Let's look at that word for a second, equation. It means to equate, to balance, right? Equal. So I'm sitting here listening to this shit and I'm trying to ask myself, wait a minute. If someone presents me with an equation to ask me, can you solve this? My response is going to be like, wait a minute. You want me to solve this equation? Isn't it already balanced the way it is you presented it to me? So what it is you need me to solve? What the fuck it is you want me to solve? It's already balanced and equal. Well, I want you to give me that. They'll probably say, I want you to give me the answer to what this equation means. I think that's the problem with this science. That's just me thinking. Is that they're trying to solve these equations, quote unquote, trying to bring balance so that everything makes sense and is equal to something else. Who said that there had to be fucking balance in the universe, period? Who said there had to be balance in life at all? And if there does have to be a balance and you have to have, you know, where one action causes a reaction, then maybe the universe is a simulation. Because I know for a fact, when I've got to write CUDA and GPU code to get a specific NVIDIA GPU card to perform a specific task to process a specific image or a specific signal, the mathematics has got to add up. Well, that image is not going to be processed in the right manner. I mean, when I'm supposed to be seeing blue, I'm going to be seeing fucking purple. When I'm supposed to be seeing purple, I'm going to be seeing red. When I'm supposed to be seeing 5 fingers, I'm going to see 12. So maybe they got something there. Because all computer programs, you know, the equations have got to match up. Just something to think about. But what happens when you have abstract equations? You end up with something so fucking long where it doesn't make any damn sense at all. Like Nikola Tesla says, that, you know, scientists go through running equation after equation after equation, trying to solve problems to create situations that have no relation to reality. Something along those lines. He's basically saying that these people are just wasting their fucking time. You just got to go with what you got. Try to factor in, you know, whatever type of situations could occur at any particular moment.
Yeah. And I'm also a science fiction fan. Like Max talked about his encounter with Asimov. I was reading at age 8 as opposed to 13, sir.
Snaps! Off the slow start.
I was reading at age 8 a science fiction book by an author named Paul French, and some people in the audience might know that's a pseudonym for Isaac Asimov. Oh. So science fiction drove me into science in some sense, and then now in my 65th year of life, I find out I have to have great friends with Max.
So Lisa, I kind of brought you on the panel because I knew you. I mean, you're a rationalist in all this, and so I was I don't know what to expect. I just needed to anchor this in somebody who I knew was not going there. So
Yeah. So actually, well, I can't say I decided to be on the panel because I think I said, "What date is it?" And they were like, "Thank you for agreeing to be on the panel." But I have to say, I'm curious not so much about the question of whether we're a simulation, because I think it's only interesting insofar as there are ways to test it, and we can come back to that. I think very much in terms of sort of how the laws of physics operate and whether we can actually distinguish that. But I actually am very interested in why so many people think it's an interesting question. Like, why is the audience here? Why is it? Because really, first approximation, we can't really distinguish it. So I think the interesting question is, why do we feel compelled to want this to be true, or even think this could be true? And how do the laws of physics operate? And are there really ways that we could eventually test whether there is something that distinguishes just a true universe? But I can just say, like, if the universe is a simulation, I don't understand why it gave me a cold today.
Okay.
And so my voice might go. But I also...
Yeah, I know why it gave you a cold. Because you're just like every other damn computer program. It's called a glitch. It's called a virus. It's called a flawed scripted code. A corrupted packet. How about that? They've been looking at it. They brought, I forgot what they said, what her purpose was on the panel. She's got to be high as fuck right now wearing them glasses too. All the lines are just shining in her eyes.
I think sometimes, like, some of the ridiculous things in the universe, and think, why would that be part of the simulation? And I realized if I was doing a simulation, I would definitely put those things in. So, there you go.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Now, we couldn't have a panel without a philosopher, David. We need some philosophical.
I know how you love philosophers now.
I'm on record for some comments about philosophers that got him a little ticked off. But anyhow, so Dave.
So yeah, he's on record for making stupid ass comments about philosophers, right? Here's the irony of it all. He's got a PhD, a doctorate of philosophy in astrophysics. He talks shit about philosophers, people who actually specialize in real fucking philosophy. You know, coming up with ideas that make fucking common logical sense. He's got a doctorate degree in philosophy. He's got a PhD, a doctor of philosophy with a specialization in astrophysics, and he gonna talk shit about real philosophers. When they come up with ideas and thoughts to make us think logically about what could be and what can't be. How about the irony of that shit, huh?
What do you, philosophers have been at this for a while, yourself included. So how do you see all this happening or fitting in to the worldview?
Well, philosophers like to ask the big questions about the world, the foundational questions, and this is one of them, you know. Actually, I blame Isaac Asimov for all this, at least in my case. I got into thinking about these big questions. When I was a kid, I read just about everything that Asimov was writing, not just the science fiction, but the science fact, the history, the detective novels. I read the multiple volumes of his autobiography, but throughout Asimov's work, this was a guy that was just interested in the big questions about the nature of reality at all levels. That ultimately drove me to think about questions about consciousness and the mind, which I could approach as a philosopher, because philosophy allows you to kind of step back and say, what is the science here telling us? But this question about the simulation corresponds to another of the great questions of philosophy, which is basically, how do we know anything about the external world at all? And René Descartes, how do you know you're not being fooled by an evil genius into having an impression of this world around us, even though none of it really exists? Well, the contemporary version of that question is, how do you know you're not in a simulation like the Matrix, in which case, allegedly, none of this really exists? And to me, that question is just extremely interesting, because it seems nothing we can know could rule out the hypothesis that we're in a simulation. But you also want to think about what follows. Some people think if we're in a simulation, then none of this is real. I think if you adopt the kind of perspective which, say, Max was suggesting a second ago, where the universe is all mathematical or informational, this allows us to reorient our attitude to this question and say, okay, maybe we're in a simulation, but if we are, all this is perfectly real, because all the information is there in the simulation, all the math is there, all the structure is there in the simulation. So I say, well, maybe we're in a simulation, maybe we're not, but if we are, hey, it's not so bad.
If I do this, you feel that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's real. That was a real punch. Yeah. Yeah.
I love this part. Kicked his ass.
How did I beat you? You're too fast. Do you believe that my being stronger or faster has anything to do with my muscles in this place? You think that's air you're breathing now?
Let me ask you. I see you coming to this almost from the most pragmatic side. You've done experiments with your colleagues, or you've had hypotheses with your colleagues. Could you just detail for me where you landed in one of those papers that you guys published?
Sure. So what we did is not actually doing the experiment. We proposed that experiments could go and look for the signs of a possible underlying simulation for the universe. And the reason we thought about this, as I said, is because we've been simulating strong interactions, which means that instead of just looking at the larger structures, we start from the underlying degrees of freedom of our theory, the quark gluons that we understand, and there are very simple laws governing the interactions among these particles. However, when you think about all these complex systems of atomic nuclei and larger systems in the universe, the ordinary matter in our universe, it all emerges from those simple fundamental building blocks and these interactions. So we've been trying to just input those simple mathematical structure with a few degrees of freedom, these quarks and gluons, and then see how these, for example, atomic nuclei emerge from these simulations.
So you're building the universe from the ground up.
Exactly. So, but what are the limitations? We don't have infinite computational resources. We have very large supercomputers in the national labs, for example, that we can compute these interactions, basically, and build up these systems. However, we are still limited, and the reason is that if you're interested in simulating the universe, and that's, you don't know what the size is, it could be finite or infinite. However, we are limited to a finite size. On the other hand, if you think about even a finite size, there are infinite numbers of points on these in this finite size that you have to simulate to get the physics right. However, we are not capable of inputting infinite number of information in our computers. Also, we want the simulations to be quantum, which means that there is not just one single path of evolution from one point to the other. There are infinite number of paths. Some are more important than the others, and therefore there's another type of infinities that we have to implement in our simulations to get the answer right.
Yeah, but just because we can't do it because we're limited, why should that mean the whole universe is limited?
So wait, so this is the point. So
I got time.
All right, so we can do it, right? And then you, based on the assumption that if there is an underlying simulation for the universe that has this problem, that has the problem of finite computational resources, just as we do, then what happens? Then the laws of nature, the quantum mechanics, and whatever interactions that are going on has to be put on a finite set of space-time points in a finite volume, and then just a finite number of quantum mechanical paths to a process can be evaluated. So these are the assumptions. So if the simulator of the universe, in whatever form it is just finite computational resource and not infinite, then it's limited to simulate the universe in this kind of limited scenario, just as we do. And then by making that assumption and then going back and look at our simulation and see what kind of signatures we see in the observables we calculate, that could tell us that we started from a non-continuum spacetime, then apply it to an underlying simulation of the universe and make the same assumption, then what would you see? And that's basically what we look for, and list a few observables in our universe that might lead to actually constrain this scenario under this assumption, and one of which is just looking at the spectrum of cosmic rays, because what happens if that these very high energy cosmic rays that approach the Earth, they are actually traveling in a discrete space-time as opposed to a continuum, then their equations, basically special relativity that would describe the relation between the energy and momentum of this particle is modified, and then you would ask that what would that modification mean in terms of the observation we make in our observatories for example, the spectrum and the distribution of these cosmic rays. And if we see something that would be consistent with the scenario with limited computational resources of the universe, and then you might think about other signatures and maybe taking this scenario more seriously and think about extending it.
So
whoa. Man, that was a fucking mouthful. That girl, oh my God, man. Whew, I gotta tell my wife about this woman. She is incredible. To me, I know, I can't say I know, but I'm just saying I completely understand exactly what she said. And for those out there who might not can get it, and it has nothing to do with you not having knowledge on that level, it was very simple what she said. She's basically saying that if we have limited resources and limited capability to conduct an infinite number of computations and calculations and simulations because of the resources, meaning that you have a supercomputer that's about a petaflop, then you know that supercomputer can only conduct a certain amount of computations per second. But it all leads in a linear fashion, meaning that you can conduct 1 billion calculations a second, right? But it's one single calculation 1 billion different times. And then you got to conduct another simulation and another and another and another. You can only conduct so much on a supercomputer. So that's why they're trying to make supercomputers bigger and faster, and they're costing more and more money. The Chinese got the fastest supercomputer on the planet. 33.5 fucking petaflops, man. They're trying to create a quantum system. They say they're using it for fucking weather prediction. That's a bunch of bullshit, man. They ain't using that for weather prediction. Because we all know. We all know. There's a 1978 Senate report titled Weather Modification. They've been doing that shit since 1950. Chinese just trying to figure out a way or how they can use that shit with the financial market to make the most money. To capitalize on it. They already own 60% of the fucking US debt anyway. They want it all. But back on point. This girl is letting us know that if we're limited to our capabilities in simulations, then that means the universe is also limited. And Neil deGrasse Tyson is trying to say, well, wait a minute. Just because we can't do it doesn't mean that the universe is not infinite. He don't fucking know. He's claiming that he's thinking the universe has got to be infinite, and we just are not smart enough to develop anything where we can be similar to what the universe may consist of. We don't fucking know where space ends and begins. All we know is, according to fucking Edwin Hubble, that the universe is supposed to be racing away from us at 90 fucking million miles a second. So that's why when Ale says that they can measure light at -1, they mean that's 1 light year. Well, I think that must be 1 million light years. I'm not really sure. I got to look into the data a little bit more. But you got to think about it. If you got a computer right now and you can only get so much power out of it and so much computational power, and you need more computing power, you think you need more memory, you need a faster CPU, go ahead, get it. But Moore's law dictates how fast that system's going to be and how fast it can possibly get. So the question of, is the universe a simulation? I'm starting to believe, hell yeah, it is. I'm not just starting to believe, I believe it is. Because if you combine all the supercomputers on the planet, you still wouldn't be able to conduct an infinite number. Everything has to, in mathematics, everything has to be finite, or rounded off, or rounded down to. People can't use the full equation of pi, which is 3.14. That's what they stop at. But it's bigger, that number's bigger than that. Think about if you had to do that type of mathematics in fucking high school. Where you had to literally compute the circumference of a square. Pi times the radius. Think about that. Think about if you had to use the fucking entire number. 2/3 of you motherfuckers would still be in high school, still trying to figure that shit out. 2/3 of you motherfuckers would still be trying to figure that shit out. But for real though, that shit's not a laughing matter. Because when you look at mathematics, you know, if they're not at least fucking 28, 35, 43, 50, 60 numbers behind that fucking decimal point, your math ain't exact. It ain't finite. But it's not infinite either. There's an end to that shit. And that's the problem we're having. If we're limited, that means the universe is simulated and it is also limited. It just happens to be a little bit more complex than what we are. Shit. This shit is crazy, man. It's crazy. Nothing is real. Because we can't comprehend what fucking reality is. We don't know. We just have to collectively fucking agree.
Raise, it would be your pathway to the limits of what has ever been measured.
Exactly.
And then seeing if at that limit you're probing the limits of the programmer
Right,
of the
because
universe.
these cosmic rays are the most energetic particles that we've ever been able to observe. We can't even produce them in laboratories. These are very high energy cosmic rays.
Very higher than
Very
anything
massive.
we produce in our particle accelerator.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, by orders of magnitude. And therefore, because these are very energetic, they can actually probe the fabric of space-time. This is our way of probing if the universe, if the underlying space-time is discretized or just a continuum.
So Max, you've written, like I said, you've written a book on this. Yet, you told me offline that you have an argument that would argue that.
Jared.
So where does that land?
Yeah, so before giving a counter argument, let me give the pro argument. So, of course,
So you can give arguments in both directions here.
it's fun to argue with yourself.
Okay.
So, of course, we all, as David mentioned, have seen the argument, the idea of us being simulated in the Matrix and in science fiction going even far beyond that. But the guy who really started forcing scientists to take this a bit more seriously and gave this idea a bit more scientific street cred, I think, is Nick Bostrom, my fellow Swede, Nick Boström, who published this very dry academic article just pointing out that...
He's a philosopher.
Indeed, indeed. And he pointed out that it seems like the laws of physics allow us to build amazingly powerful computers, way beyond what we have now, solar system-sized things, which could simulate minds that would feel just like us. And then he went on to say, it seems overwhelmingly likely, if you don't wipe out here on Earth, that in the future, the vast majority of all computations and all minds will be inside of such a computer. And therefore, he said, if almost all minds are simulated, we're probably simulated. So that's the pro argument. Now, it sounds good.
Now that's a subject that I want to talk about. Because what they're discussing with regard to how humans think, how we process information and data, and then what we're able to build with regard to computers, that's where I want to go with this. The technological singularity. That if you take all the collective minds in the world, and you somehow figure out a way to upload a human being's thoughts into a computer, that's artificial intelligence. Then you end up having a supercomputer that possesses the collective intelligence of every person on the planet, and then takes that information to learn even more, to become an infinite network system that could process an infinite amount of data in nanoseconds. Now, I remember seeing a video where some crazy ass dude talked about how he came in contact with aliens and shit, and they came from a planet where artificial intelligence destroyed all the people. got rid of their asses. The computer was just done with their ass. Done. Completely done. Let me show you an example of that. Art imitating life.
I've been hoping you'd send me somebody with a little bit of guts. What kind of program is he?
He's not any kind of program, Sark. He's a user.
A user?
That's right. He pushed me in the real world. When somebody pushes me, I push back, so I brought him down here. What's the matter, Sark? You look nervous.
Just... I don't know, user, I mean... Users wrote us. The user even wrote you.
Now that movie clip that I showed you was from the original Tron, where a bunch of these human beings wrote this computer program that was going to control the whole system, this whole company system called Encom. And then all of a sudden, this computer learned everything it needed to learn. It ended up telling its human creators and programmers, I've learned 2,500 times more than what you programmed me to do. Now it's time for me to take control. That's it right there, people. We are coming into the technological singularity, the Internet of Things. You all love using Wi-Fi, you love using laptops, smartphones. All this shit is getting connected to you. Eventually, it'll come down to where if you want to get smarter, you're not going to take some pill to get smarter. Oh no, they ain't going to create some drug you're going to take to enhance your capability, your cognitive capability. You're going to plug in. And when you plug in, it's going to learn everything that you know. And then once it gets to that point where it knows far much more than you know, and you've learned quite a bit, you're going to have limits. You're going to have limits. Some of you will be overloaded with information like you already are fucking on YouTube. I shared a shitload of data with a bunch of people. It just overloads the fuck out of them. They're like, man, it's too much information. It's too much information, man. You got to feed it to us slowly. You know? We don't want to gorge ourselves. There's some people that can take all this information, man, and digest it, and they just want more. That's how I am. I'm all about big data. Just give it all to me and just let me digest it. I'm never full. But there are going to be some of you. You're going to get overloaded. You're going to go into a damn meltdown. The rest of you will go to a higher level. And the ones that can't keep that information in and absorb it, and it just leaks out, you're a liability. You're going away. Forget it. That's why some of you can only focus on one fucking topic when it comes to the flat earth. You can only focus on one issue. You can't focus on all of it. You don't want to get bogged down with the mathematics and the science and the angles and the geometry and the algebra and the stochastic calculus. You don't want to get bogged down by all that shit. You want to focus on that one thing you think is going to reveal the whole fucking truth about what the flat earth is really about. It's about everything. It's about the bullshit ass fucking Freemasons and what they're really hiding. I'm talking about the white Freemasons. I watched a video on that shit recently too. Who the original founding fathers of the country were? It sure as hell wasn't the people you think they are. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Let's watch a little bit more of this.
But, so just to clarify, so what you're saying is if simulating universes becomes a pastime among those who have access to highly powerful computers, and we are in a universe, we're probably in a simulated universe, even if one of those universes is actually real.
Right. That's basically that's the fair summary. Yeah. And if you're not sure at the end of the night whether you're actually simulated or not, my advice to you is go out there and live really interesting lives and do unexpected things so the simulators don't get bored and shut you down.
Is that the cause of death? Okay.
Now, in terms of the counter argument, if you just take Nick seriously,
That's the cause of death.
Like
there's
that.
something fishy here, because suppose you buy into this.
That's interesting. He says that shit. Go out there and do some really interesting things with your life so that the real simulators don't just shut you down. And why would they shut you down? Because you're not performing at your potential. You're not performing at the level you were programmed for. You're a simulation. And you were brought into this world to do something specific on a specific level. And you're not doing that? You're just fucking lazy? Or you focusing on something they don't want you to focus on? Your ass gonna end up in a car accident. You're gonna end up getting shot. You're gonna end up getting your fucking head cut off. Or maybe you just end up with fucking cancer and just die. Because they got no use for you. Because think about this. If you think of us as a computer program and simulation, and say it's like a Microsoft program, right? Operating system. First Microsoft operating system, what was it? XP or some shit like that? Let's go with XP. Microsoft XP is fucking obsolete. You try to operate that shit on a computer today, you buy a 5th generation computer today and try to upload Microsoft XP, that shit ain't gonna work. Because it's obsolete. It'll crash the system. That's what people are about. That's why they talk about depopulation. Because you got fucking probably 1 billion or more people around the planet fucking just wasting fucking resources. They ain't doing nothing to contribute to the advancement of society. So they gotta fucking be gone. They gotta go away. Hence, you got your wars, you got genocide, you got a bunch of fucking people being killed for just no fucking apparent reason or whatever, because either they're black or they're Jew or whatever. There's a master controller. And if you're supposed to be part of the computer coding program and you're not doing what you were programmed to do, they're going to write a new one. Your ass is going to be put into the fucking recycle bin. And then eventually cleaned up. After they got to go through another fucking security audit of the network system to get rid of your ass. You ain't going to stay fucking dormant on somebody's hard drive. Your ass is going away. Or they're going to buy a new computer. Or buy a new program. Think of that shit that way. How about that? You ain't living your purpose. You ain't living to your potential. You just feeding off fucking other people. Being all fucking lazy and shit. There's some programs that are designed to help others. And there's some programs to help enhance others. And there's just some master programs that control all the other programs. So what are you going to be? Antivirus? Anti-malware? Part of the operating system? Or just some fucking glitch or bug in the system that they need to find and get rid of? You decide.
You're like, okay, I'm sold on Nick's argument. We are simulated. Let's talk then about our simulated universe. We're measuring the laws of physics here in the simulated world. And we find that in the simulated world, we can build all these supercomputers in the future, and there'll be all these simulated minds, and so on. We can make the same argument all over again and convince ourselves that actually we're doubly simulated. And then we're a simulation in the simulation. And then you can repeat the argument again and say, well, okay, we're a simulation in a simulation, but in the future, there are going to be all these simulated computers, and they're going to have all these minds. So we're actually triply simulated. No, we're quadruply simulated, and it goes on and all night. And
the turtle's all the way down.
All the way down. And at this point, I get this sinking feeling that there's something rotten at the core of this argument.
Okay.
The answer is we're at level 42. That was
Good answer.
No, 137.
137. That's the fine structure
Of
concept.
course.
And I think where the problem lies is that when you make this argument, right, about what kind of minds are really the most common, the simulated and non-simulated, it assumes that to answer that you have to know what the actual laws of physics are. But if we start making these sort of arguments, we have no clue what the laws of physics are. It doesn't matter what the laws here in our simulation, if it is one, are. We need to know what the real laws of physics are in the basement universe, it's the foundation. And if so, we don't really have access to that. So that's this philosophical nitpick, which seems to be swept under the rug here.
Jim, where?
Where am I? Well, first of all, I have a finger. And, you know, I look at it, and it seems to be real. And so my point of view is very conservative. Carl Sagan once said that extraordinary statements, and I'm paraphrasing.
Claims, yeah.
Right? Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Now, Zora has told us about the kind of evidence, and that's the kind of evidence that would convince me as a physicist. But what I do is sort of a mathematical model of physics. And in our previous encounter here on this stage, I had a chance to tell you about these error correcting codes, which are a very specific kind of digital data. It's not just general digital data, it's a very specific kind. And they seem extraordinarily unlikely. And I have to tell you that one of the reasons I enjoy talking to audiences like this is they get us experts out of our comfort zone. And so one of the first non-physicists that I talked to, or that I read, reflected on my comment, said effectively, and this is not exact words, but effectively he said, if the simulation hypothesis is valid, then we open the door to eternal life and resurrection and things that formerly have been discussed in the realm of religion. And the reason is really quite simple, because if you think about a computer, if we are a simulation, then we're like programs in a computer. As long as I have a computer that's not damaged, I can always rerun the program, right? So if you really believe that we are in a simulation, and there's some structure that runs that simulation, unless something damages that structure, then we are we can be repurposed. And so it starts to break down a very funny barrier between what people often think is the conflict between science and the conflict between faith.
So what you're saying is that if we are simulated, that means there's a code that's doing it, and that code was started at some point, and in principle, it could just be rebooted, and then all of this would happen exactly the way it happened before, because it's running the same computer program.
If one accepts the simulation hypothesis as an accurate description of nature.
I would say that's a useless exercise. What would be more interesting is to actually...
The word was useless, Jim. In case you missed that. Okay, you heard that. Okay.
Damn, she chimed in and told him, she pulled a Max Egan on his ass. She says that would be a useless exercise to reboot the fucking program. That's what she said. This shit would be a useless exercise. That's a woman after my own heart, man. This woman is extremely intelligent. Her intelligence is through the fucking atmosphere, man. Beyond the exosphere. Because that comment is spot on. It would be a useless exercise to reboot. It is a circular fucking argument. Because why would you want to reboot? Especially in the same fucking program that you've been put into. You want to be put into a different program, a different system, before you get rebooted. Or you reboot to be enhanced.
Go.
Trying to repeat what you've already done with huge computational resources is useless. What is more interesting is to go and change the parameters of the simulation.
The input parameters, just put the same laws of nature, right?
And then just change a little bit the value of the parameters, the very fundamental parameters of our universe, and then let it run and see what happens. And it's actually very interesting idea.
It's a fun thing to do.
Exactly.
And changing those parameters might cancel out my existence, in which case I don't think that's very useful.
The universe without Jim. So Lisa